There is something almost magical about walking into your backyard and plucking a ripe, sun-warmed orange straight from your own tree. The scent that bursts from the peel as you break it open, that impossibly fresh sweetness on your tongue. It feels like a small miracle, especially if you live somewhere that isn't exactly known for tropical weather. But here's the thing that might surprise you. Growing citrus trees in your home orchard isn't just for people living in Florida or Southern California. With the right knowledge, the right varieties, and a little bit of patience, you can cultivate these beautiful, productive trees in far more places than you might think. And today we're going to explore exactly how to make that happen. Let's start with a question that stops many aspiring citrus growers before they even begin. Can I actually grow citrus where I live? The honest answer is, it depends. But probably yes, in some form. Citrus trees are subtropical plants. They love warmth, they crave sunshine, and most varieties really don't appreciate hard freezes. Traditional wisdom says you need to be in a hardiness zone of 9 or higher to grow them outdoors year-round. But that's not the whole story anymore. Thanks to decades of horticultural research and the development of cold-hardy varieties, the citrus growing map has expanded dramatically. Satsuma mandarins, for instance, can tolerate temperatures down to the low 20s for short periods. Maya lemons, one of the most popular home orchard choices, handle cold better than most lemon varieties. Kumquats are surprisingly tough little trees that can survive temperatures that would kill other citrus outright. And if you live somewhere with genuinely cold winters, container growing changes everything. A citrus tree in a large pot can spend warm months outdoors soaking up the sun, then move to a bright indoor location when frost threatens. It's not the traditional orchard image, perhaps, but the fruit tastes exactly the same. So what does a citrus tree actually need to thrive? Let's break this down into the essentials. First, sunshine. Citrus trees are sun worshippers. They want a minimum of 6 hours of direct sunlight daily, and 8 to 10 hours is even better. When you're choosing a planting location, watch how the sun moves across your yard throughout the day. That south-facing spot that gets warm and bright all afternoon, that's your citrus spot. Second, soil. Citrus trees demand excellent drainage above almost everything else. They cannot tolerate wet feet. If your soil holds water after rain, creating puddles that linger for hours, you need to either amend it heavily with sand and organic matter, or consider raised beds. The ideal pH ranges from slightly acidic to neutral, roughly 6 to 7.5. If you're unsure about your soil, a simple test kit from any garden center will tell you what you're working with. Third, water. This is where many new citrus growers make mistakes. These trees need consistent moisture, but they hate being waterlogged. The goal is deep watering that encourages roots to grow downward, followed by allowing the soil to partially dry before watering again. During hot summer months, this might mean watering once or twice a week. In cooler weather, much less frequently. The top 2 inches of soil should feel dry before you water again. Fourth, nutrition. Citrus trees are relatively heavy feeders, especially during their active growing season. They need nitrogen for foliage growth, phosphorus for root development and flowering, and potassium for fruit quality. But they also require specific micronutrients, particularly iron, zinc, and manganese, that many standard fertilizers lack. This is why citrus-specific fertilizers exist, and why they're worth the investment. Feed your trees every 4 to 6 weeks from early spring through late summer, then reduce feeding as they enter dormancy. Now let's talk about choosing your varieties, because this decision shapes everything that follows. If you're new to citrus growing, start with something forgiving. Maya lemons are almost universally recommended for beginners, and for good reason. They're more compact than standard lemon trees, making them perfect for smaller spaces or containers. They're cold hardier than true lemons. They bloom and fruit reliably, often within just 2 or 3 years of planting, and the fruit itself is exceptional. sweeter, and more complex than grocery store lemons. Satsuma mandarins deserve serious consideration if you have cold winters. These Japanese varieties produce some of the most delicious, easy-peeling fruit you'll ever taste, and they can handle temperatures that would devastate other citrus. They're also relatively compact and beautiful ornamental trees in their own right. For something different, consider kumquats. The entire fruit is edible, peel and all, with a fascinating sweet tart flavor profile. The trees are naturally small, rarely exceeding 8 feet, and they're among the most cold-tolerant of all citrus varieties. Grapefruit and standard oranges need more heat and more space. If you have both to offer, they can be tremendously rewarding. Valencia oranges, in particular, are excellent juicing oranges that ripen later in the season, extending your harvest. Let's address planting technique, because how you establish your tree affects its entire future. When you're planting in the ground, dig a hole twice as wide as the root ball, but exactly as deep. You don't want the tree sitting lower than it was in its nursery container. The graft union, that knobby junction where the fruiting variety was grafted onto the rootstock, should remain above soil level. Backfill with native soil mixed with compost, water deeply to settle everything, and add a thick layer of mulch around the base, keeping it a few inches away from the trunk itself. For container growing, choose a pot with excellent drainage holes. Something in the 15 to 25 gallon range works well for most varieties. Use a well-draining potting mix, ideally one formulated for citrus or cacti. Container trees need more frequent watering and feeding than in-ground trees, and they'll eventually need repotting as they grow. Protection from cold is crucial for marginal climates. When frost threatens, your first line of defense is location. Trees planted near south-facing walls or under eaves benefit from reflected and radiated heat. For serious cold snaps, tree wraps, holiday lights that generate gentle warmth, and frost cloth can make the difference between survival and loss. Pest and disease management deserves attention, though citrus trees are reasonably resilient. Watch for scale insects, those small brown or white bumps that cluster on stems and leaves. Aphids love new growth. Spider mites can become problematic in hot, dry conditions. In most cases, horticultural oil sprays applied during dormancy and insecticidal soaps during the growing season will handle these issues without harsh chemicals. Citrus leaf miner, a small moth whose larvae tunnel through leaves, has become increasingly common in home orchards. The damage looks dramatic but rarely threatens tree health. Spraying is generally unnecessary unless infestations are severe on young trees. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of citrus growing is patience. Unlike some fruit trees that produce within a year or two, citrus trees take time to establish and mature. Depending on the variety and growing conditions, you might wait 3 to 5 years for your first meaningful harvest. Use that time to learn your tree's rhythms, to understand what it needs, to watch the cycles of flowering and growth. When harvest finally comes, you'll notice something remarkable. Citrus fruit doesn't ripen off the tree the way many fruits do. Those oranges or lemons need to mature on the branch, developing their full sugar content and flavor profile. Color change is helpful, but not definitive. Taste testing is the only reliable way to know when your fruit is truly ready. The rewards extend beyond fruit alone. Citrus trees are beautiful year-round, with glossy evergreen foliage that catches light. When they bloom, usually in spring, the fragrance is intoxicating, sweet and clean, and somehow both familiar and exotic. These are trees that give pleasure in every season. Start small. Choose a variety suited to your climate. Pay attention to the fundamentals of sun, soil, water, and nutrition. Protect against cold when necessary, and give your trees the time they need. You were never meant to accept that citrus belongs only to warmer places. You were meant to stand in your own orchard, breathing that unmistakable scent, harvesting fruit you grew yourself. That possibility is close.